A startling report has emerged from the heart of Russia's military machine. New shadow is moving across the battlefield in Ukraine, and it may be unlike anything we've seen before. Russia is reportedly preparing to test a scaled-down version of its cutting-edge Oreshnik missile system, a weapon known only as Svirel. But what exactly is this system? Why is it so important that even NATO is quietly taking notice? And could its debut change the very nature of the war? Reports from Russian paramilitary sources claim that several Svirel Euclid, described as a mini Oreshnik, have already been moved to the Ukrainian border. The plan, according to these reports, is to launch precision strikes on remote military targets, far from civilian areas. Officially, this is framed as an effort to avoid collateral damage, but in reality, it may be a live-fire test of a completely new strategic capability. Sources say this test was planned months ago, but postponed. Why? Because Moscow was in delicate negotiations with the United States. The decision to hold back was political. The decision to proceed now is something else entirely. If these reports are accurate, we could be witnessing Russia's first step in fielding a new generation of mobile, rapid deployment missile systems designed to outpace NATO's detection and interception networks. To understand Svirel, we have to look at its predecessor. The full-sized Oreshnik was first used during Russia's special military operation in Ukraine. Its combat record includes the destruction of high-value industrial targets, such as the Yuzhmash production facilities in Dnipro, a blow that crippled part of Ukraine's missile manufacturing capacity. If Oreshnik is the hammer, Svirel Langs could be the scalpel, smaller, lighter, and potentially faster to deploy. NATO planners have long relied on the assumption that large, high-value Russian missile systems require significant logistical buildup. Svirel challenges that assumption. A miniaturized platform could be mounted on smaller vehicles, hidden more easily, and deployed closer to front lines, all while retaining the ability to deliver high-precision strikes over hundreds of kilometers. And here's where it gets even more serious. Russian military planners are reportedly preparing to position Oreshnik systems, and potentially Svirel, in Belarus ahead of the upcoming Zapad-2025 military exercises. This isn't just another drill. Zapad-2025 will simulate full-scale, high-intensity conflict scenarios against NATO. Among the possible scenarios, direct strikes on NATO decision-making centers and critical infrastructure. These aren't just abstract points on a map. We're talking about real-world locations, RAF Lakenheath and RAF Mildenhall in the UK, Aviano Air Base in Italy, bases that host advanced US and NATO air power, including nuclear-capable assets. If Svirel can hit these targets in a training scenario, it sends one very clear message. They could be hit in reality. For Washington, the timing couldn't be worse. The US is already juggling commitments in Europe, the Middle East, and the Indo-Pacific. The last thing the Pentagon needs is a new, highly mobile missile system entering the battlefield, one that could exploit gaps in NATO's missile defense architecture. Even if Svirel isn't as powerful as Oreshnik, its existence has psychological weight. Every time a NATO radar station detects a launch, the question becomes, is this the full-sized weapon, or the smaller one designed to slip through? That uncertainty forces NATO to stretch its resources thinner, an advantage Russia can use both militarily and politically. And that leads to the most unsettling questions of all. Is Russia using Ukraine as a live proving ground for a weapon meant for NATO, not Kiev? Could Zapad-2025 serve as a rehearsal for strikes far beyond Ukraine's borders? And, if Svirel proves effective, how quickly could Russia mass-produce it across multiple fronts? The truth is, we don't yet know exactly what Svirel can do. But history has shown one thing. When Russia unveils a new weapon system, it's rarely just for show. And if NATO and the US underestimate this mini Oreshnik, they could find themselves facing a threat that moves faster, hides harder, and hits harder than anyone expected. This is not just a new missile. It could be the opening act in a new phase of the conflict. Some of NATO's most critical air bases, RAF Lakenheath, Aviano Air Base, Ramstein, host assets that would be priority targets in any conflict. If Svirel can be rapidly deployed to forward positions, Could these bases lose their reaction window entirely? The US military already faces a stretched force posture, juggling deterrence in Europe, containment in the Indo-Pacific, and crisis response in the Middle East. Could Svirel be designed specifically to exploit that overstretch? To force Washington to divert resources from one theater to another? Even if Svirel's destructive power is less than Oreshnik's, it creates doubt. Every radar ping, every launch alert forces NATO into split-second decisions: intercept or hold fire. What happens if that hesitation costs lives? What happens if NATO overreacts to a training launch, triggering an escalation spiral? If Svirel is as mobile as claimed, it could be deployed in unpredictable ways, hidden in forests, disguised among civilian trucks, even placed aboard small naval vessels in the Black Sea. Could NATO's intelligence networks keep up? Or would Svirel open new gaps in NATO's situational awareness? Miniaturization doesn't just make weapons stealthier, it can make them cheaper. If Svirel can be mass-produced faster than NATO can expand its missile defense systems, are we looking at a missile gap in reverse, one that favors Russia? On the ground, Ukraine's forces already face constant missile and drone bombardment. Adding a new, harder-to-detect missile to the mix could overwhelm air defense coverage. Would Ukraine need entirely new systems to counter Svirel? And would NATO be willing to supply them at the risk of direct confrontation with Moscow? Moscow may be betting that showcasing Svirel will deter NATO from deeper involvement. But deterrence is risky. What if NATO interprets Svirel's deployment as preparation for a broader offensive? What if the alliance decides to preempt rather than react? If Svirel proves successful in Ukraine, its export potential could reshape alliances. Would Russia sell a system like this to Iran, to North Korea, to nations in Africa or Latin America looking for affordable missile deterrence? Is Russia quietly preparing for a missile arms race it knows it can win? Could Svirel be a decoy weapon, meant to distract NATO from something even more advanced in development? Are we already seeing the first hints of a new Russian doctrine, one built on speed, mobility, and ambiguity? And most dangerous of all, what happens if NATO calls Moscow's bluff? In war, the deadliest weapon is often the one you didn't see coming. Svirel may be smaller than Oreshnik, but in the chess game between Russia and NATO, size is not the only factor that matters. It's positioning, timing, and the will to use it. As Zapad-2025 approaches, the world will be watching and listening. The question is, will we recognize the opening move before it's too late? EZA video is created for informational, educational, and analytical purposes only. All information presented is based on publicly available sources and does not contain classified or confidential material. The views and analysis expressed in this video are intended to provide context and insight into current geopolitical and military developments. We do not promote or endorse any form of violence, armed conflict, or political agenda. The content is not aimed at inciting hostility, spreading disinformation, or influencing public opinion in favor of any party. All images, footage, and materials used in this video are for illustration and commentary purposes under fair use. Viewers are encouraged to cross-check all information with credible, verified sources.